Hello everyone! Today we're going to talk about paragraph structure. Now, there's no hard rules for when to begin a paragraph, when to break a paragraph. Paragraphing is a form of punctuation. It's a form of breaking up thoughts, but there's no clear-cut guidelines as to when to break a paragraph, when to begin the next one. There's general guidelines, there's some flexibility within this, but basically you want to follow three principles. First and foremost, your paragraph has to be unified. That's the number one principle of paragraph structure. Your entire essay is unified if all of the paragraphs work to support your overall thesis. And then in turn, each paragraph is unified if every sentence within each paragraph works to support one single argument, one single purpose. So you probably have more than one idea. If you want to break it down into small units of thought, you probably do have more than one idea, but they need to be closely enough related so that all of the sentences work to support a single point, a single supporting claim. So if you imagine, for example, a car, if somebody asks you, is a car one thing or is it many things? Most people would look at a car as a single object, but somebody could argue with them and say, well, look, there's tires, there's wheels, there's axles, there's an engine, there's a muffler, there's an oil tank. Somebody might point out all the different parts of a car and say, well, it's many different objects, but we tend to think of it as one object because all of those parts work together to serve one purpose. So in this analogy, you could look at the car as the overall essay. All of the parts are working to support one overall thesis. You're trying to make one broad argument. And then each paragraph is like one part of the car. So again, somebody could say, well, the windshield wipers, that's more than one part. But you could say, okay, well, the windshield wipers, this is our paragraph. The windshield wipers, we might have a blade, we might have screws, we might have levers, we have different parts to make up the windshield wipers, but they all work together to achieve that goal of keeping the windshields clear so that somebody can drive the car. So keeping the windshields clear, if you imagine that's a parallel for the purpose of a single paragraph. All of the parts of the windshield wiper work to perform that purpose of keeping the windshields clear, just like every sentence in a paragraph works to support an overall claim. And then in turn, keeping the windshields clear works to support the overall purpose of the car, which is to drive safely. So just like a supporting claim in a paragraph, all of the sentences work to support that one supporting claim, but then in turn, that supporting claim supports the overall argument of the essay. So we get essay unity when all of the paragraphs work to support our thesis. We get paragraph unity when all of the sentences in each paragraph work to support a single argument. The key word in that definition is point. You want to have a point or a purpose or an argument that you're developing. You don't want to look at unity in terms of topic. You want to have a reason that you're writing the paragraph. You don't want to just be discussing a topic for the sake of discussing the topic. So make sure that all of the sentences in the paragraph develop a clear point. So to review this concept, let's look at a paragraph together. I'm going to read it and then I'll pause for a little bit and then I want you to decide on your own, is this a unified paragraph? And when you're answering that question, I'd like you to just stop and ask, what is the overall point that's being developed? So here we go. Cats, also known as felines, are members of the animal kingdom. More specifically, cats are mammals. Domesticated cats have lived with humans for thousands of years. Egyptians worshipped cats for their graceful manners. Today, they are one of the most popular household pets. Cats usually get along with other cats, but they also live very happily as solitary creatures. Some cats have fur, other cats, such as the Sphinx, also known as the Canadian hairless, do not. These cats are usually preferred by pet owners who have allergies. Cats, like dogs, can carry fleas. However, cats cannot use the same medications as dogs to get rid of fleas. Like dogs, cats are carnivores. Unlike dogs, cats are very clean animals. Their sandy tongue is useful for cleaning their coats. It is difficult to teach a cat tricks. However, unlike dogs, cats usually learn to use the litter box without any training. So think to yourself, what is the overall point of this paragraph? To judge it in terms of unity, you have to ask yourself, do all of these sentences work together to support an overall point, or are they all simply on the topic of cats? I'm going to say that they're all just statements about cats. There's no overall point that's connecting these ideas together. We have a little bit about the history of cats. We have a little bit about how cats are treated today, and then the differences between cats and dogs, but there's no clear purpose that we're getting all of these details, and many of them just seem like they're placed in a random order. So move away from the idea that to be unified, all of the sentences have to be on the same topic, and remember, you have to have a clear point, you have to have a clear argument or a clear purpose for sharing this information. A good way to test paragraph unity is to ask yourself, do you have a topic sentence, or to compose a topic sentence for that paragraph? A topic sentence is just a sentence that directly states the point of a paragraph. So you don't always need a topic sentence. Sometimes your point can be implied without stating it directly, but having a topic sentence is a great way to test unity. And I'm sure that all of you at one point or another have written a topic sentence for your paragraph without even realizing it. So that typically is the best way to compose a topic sentence, is to have it come out naturally. However, some writers practice a style where they finely tune one sentence in each paragraph. So they'll finely tune their topic sentence as a way to highlight their major points in the essay, and that's an excellent strategy. And if you're one of those writers that tends to get off track, if you tend to go on tangents, ensuring that each paragraph has a topic sentence is a great way for you to overcome that habit. Now, I've seen a lot of writing guides that suggest students use the very first sentence of a paragraph as the topic sentence. However, I want you to know that this is just a recommendation from writing guides. In the real world, I don't think it works that way very often. Typically, the second paragraph of an essay, the first body paragraph, typically the topic sentence is the first sentence of the second paragraph of an essay, because that's the first body paragraph. And your introduction, you lead into your overall thesis, and then in your first body paragraph, sometimes you provide additional background, but if you don't do that, often you assert your first supporting claim. So the rest of the paragraphs, it's often later because the writer uses the first sentence or two to transition from the preceding paragraph. But in the first body paragraph of an essay, there's no need to transition from the thesis to your first supporting argument, and I would actually avoid doing that for the first body paragraph. After the first body paragraph, there still may be occasions where it does appear as the first sentence, but I want you to know that it can be the second sentence, the third sentence, the fourth sentence, the last sentence. It can appear anywhere in the paragraph. And in published writing, I would say that more often than not, the topic sentence is not the very first sentence. Because again, typically the first sentence of most body paragraphs, with the exception of that first one, the first sentence of a paragraph is typically transitioning from the preceding paragraph. But in any case, topic sentences are still a great way for testing paragraph unity, for making sure that your own paragraphs are unified, and for making sure that that point is clear to the reader. Okay, to continue to think about paragraph unity, let's look at this paragraph. I'm going to say it is unified, but I'd like you to think about which sentence works best as a topic sentence. We have, until recently, most average food lovers thought of Mexican cooking in terms of tacos, tamales, and tongue-scorching salsas. Few were aware of the exquisite moles and pipianes in their sauces of ground pumpkin seeds and spices, or the naturally cooked ceviche, a medley of raw seafood marinated in lime juice. Nor did they know that the soul-satisfying cup of hot chocolate they happily sipped on a cold winter day was a gift of the cacao and vanilla of Mexico's first civilizations. Then, in the mid-1970s, British-born Diana Kennedy stirred up the gastronomical world with her cookbooks on the regional cuisines of Mexico, and it was realized that such exotic ingredients as squash blossoms and the fleshy petals of the nopal cactus were being used by Mexican cooks to create subtly flavored dishes very similar to those prepared by the Aztecs. It became obvious that Mexican food was not just another fast food, but a distinct and truly great cuisine. Now, if you're looking for the topic sentence, remember, the topic sentence asserts the overall point directly. So all of the other sentences need to work to support that point. So it can't be a minor detail, it has to be the major point, that this overarching idea that includes all of the other ideas. So I'm going to demonstrate how to test it. I'll tell you that the wrong choice is the first sentence. A topic sentence might be the first sentence of a paragraph, but again, it doesn't have to be. So our first sentence here is, until recently, most average food lovers thought of Mexican cooking in terms of tacos, tamales, and tongue-scorching salsas. Now, the way to test a topic sentence is to ask yourself, if you choose that one, you want to ask yourself, do all the other sentences work to support that point? In this case, I'm going to say no, because if this is our topic sentence, then the rest of the paragraph has to just prove that most average food lovers at one time thought of Mexican cooking in terms of tacos, tamales, and tongue-scorching salsa. So you might see an interview from somebody commenting on their understanding of Mexican cooking, or you might see some statistics of a survey somebody conducted. But since the writer just makes that point and moves on, I'm going to say that her overall idea is beyond this idea. This is a minor detail that's helping to support her overall point. So if you look at this paragraph, maybe decide which sentence asserts an argument that all of the other sentences work to support. Now, there's a couple sentences that I would accept as possible topic sentences. I don't think Marilyn Towson, the author, thought, oh, I better have a topic sentence in here. I think hers probably came very naturally. There are a couple of choices that I would accept. One probably is better than the other, but the first one I would accept is the second half of this sentence. It was realized that such exotic ingredients as squash blossoms and the fleshy petals of the nopal cactus were being used by Mexican cooks to create subtly flavored dishes very similar to those prepared by the Aztecs. So I would accept this as a topic sentence. It is introducing the point of her paragraph, but probably a better choice is this final sentence. It became obvious that Mexican cooking was not just another fast food, but a distinct and truly great cuisine. They're basically asserting the same idea, but the final sentence is a little bit broader, and most importantly, it's broad enough to include all of the other ideas she has in this paragraph. So unity, it's not about just having one idea and reiterating it or repeating it. It's about having multiple ideas that work together to support a single claim or a single purpose. So this final sentence, it includes all of the earlier ideas of how most average food lovers viewed Mexican cooking, what they were not aware of about Mexican cooking, that they didn't understand the ingredients, or they weren't aware that hot chocolate originated from Mexico, until British-born Diana Kennedy stirred up the Gastronomical World Weather Cookbook and provided this background. So it includes all of those ideas, and it's broad enough to encompass all of those ideas. So we would say that's the main point of this paragraph. She's trying to show us how the public's perception of Mexican cooking changed. Let's look at another paragraph. This is from a book entitled From Socrates to Sartre by T.Z. Levine. It's an excellent book. If you ever have to take a philosophy course, this is an excellent overview of all the major philosophers, starting with the famous Greek philosopher Socrates. So this paragraph is about the Greek philosopher Socrates' student Plato. Both Socrates and Plato were Greek philosophers, and this one is primarily focused on Plato. So I'm going to say it's a unified paragraph. I'm going to read it to you, and then again, I want you to think, where is the topic sentence? Where is T.Z. Levine asserting her overall point most clearly? And in this paragraph, I would say there was also a couple of options. So this one reads, after Socrates was put to death, Plato was more than ever convinced that a democratic state, a state ruled by the many, is doomed to disaster. The many, he believed, can never know what is good for the state. They lack the necessary level of intelligence and training. They're concerned only with their own immediate pleasure and gratification, and they're swayed by the unstable, volatile emotions which render them susceptible to clever demagogues or to mob passions. He believed that a democratic government run by the many cannot produce good human beings, and in turn he believed that good people would find life impossible under such a state. Okay, so if you're not familiar with some of this vocabulary, he says they are swayed by unstable, volatile emotions. Volatile, explosive. Susceptible, you're vulnerable, so you're liable to be controlled by clever demagogues. Demagogues are corrupt leaders. They're highly influential leaders that are corrupt and misleading and often are associated with bigotry. So Hitler is a good example of a demagogue. Okay, so the paragraph, after Socrates was put to death, Plato was more than ever convinced that a democratic state, a state ruled by the many, is doomed to disaster. The many, he believed, etc., etc. If you read through this paragraph, which one works best as a topic sentence? So remember, again, it has to be the broad idea. It can't be a supporting detail. So I would say it's not they lack the necessary level of intelligence and training, because if that's the topic sentence, the whole paragraph would be about just intelligence and training. So which sentence asserts a point that's broad enough to include all of these ideas? Again, there are two options that I would choose for this paragraph, but I would say the better choice in this paragraph is this opening sentence, especially its main clause. So we open with, after Socrates was put to death, Plato was more than ever convinced that a democratic state, a state ruled by the many, is doomed to disaster. The main clause of this sentence works much better as a topic sentence because it's focused on Plato not believing in democracy. So the rest of the paragraph gives reasons why he didn't support democracy, but they're all the overarching idea is that he didn't believe in democracy. The detail about Socrates, I would guess that's a transition from the previous paragraph. So I did actually just take this out of T.Z. Levine's book, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm going to say that opening line after Socrates was put to death, that is a transition from the previous paragraph. So the previous paragraph most likely discusses Socrates' death. So Socrates was sentenced to death. He was accused of corrupting the minds of the public. And after a trial, they found him guilty and sentenced him to drink hemlock, which basically meant he had to poison himself. So Plato was very, very bitter about that. So this opening line, yes, the topic sentence is at the beginning, but we still have that transition showing how this paragraph is related to the one that precedes it. So typically a topic sentence does come later, but if it does come at the beginning, usually you still have a little transition. The exception is with the first body paragraph, but body paragraphs after that, you usually still have some kind of transition between the paragraphs to show how the point in one paragraph is related to the point in the paragraph that precedes it. So I think the best choice for a topic sentence is this first sentence, the main clause of this first sentence. Plato was more than ever convinced that a democratic state, a state ruled by the many, is doomed to disaster. I would say that's the best choice for a topic sentence. If you chose the last one, I don't think that's a bad choice. Technically, we'd call it a concluding sentence, or a closing sentence, but when you open with a topic sentence, it's even more necessary to kind of reinforce your point. So at the end, he believed that a democratic government run by the many cannot produce good human beings, and in turn, he believed that good people would find life impossible under such a state. It's a little more detailed than the opening paragraph, so I would say this first choice is much stronger, but this still reinforces the point, and you kind of always want to do that with your paragraphs. Either reinforce the major point in that paragraph, or try to connect that point to your overall thesis.